Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Interview with DJ Nocturna. If you're watching on my YouTube channel, please like, subscribe, and share. And please hit that alert button so you can be notified when I put up another interview. Well, my guest is from New Zealand. She's right now based in New Zealand, American folktronic artist Parabola West, also known as Amy Tucker West. Thank you for joining me. Such an honor to have another person from New Zealand.
Oh, the honor is mine. Thank you so much for the invitation.
I'm so glad because I'm learning so much about different cultures, the interviewing. And I'm like I was mentioning just a while ago, yeah, I feel like I'm in the wrong place in America because here in America, we work 9 to 5, typically. And over there, I'm like I interviewed another artist, Justino Godfrey Sharp, and she has horses and she's got these other things. And I'm like, hmm. and
Yeah, the work-life balance in New Zealand is a very different, the way that we think about work is very different than my experience in the American culture. So here people really, they do the work in order to live and travel and do the things, and they do those things. But in the States, I remember it really just being about working as much as you could and getting as many hours in. So I think there's
yeah,
something to it.
I mean, even in Europe, in Spain, they have that siesta where they go to sleep
Yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, well, let me see.
Yeah,
But,
I love an afternoon nap. I don't know about you, but I
does
love
it,
it.
right? You get rejuvenated.
It's
Um,
great.
so you're originally from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was born in New Jersey, but I was raised in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Okay. And then now you live in this amazing place in New Zealand. So which place is that in New Zealand?
So I live on the North Island of New Zealand on the west coast in the little beach town called Raglan, and I live kind of up a mountain just outside of the township.
Oh, so how long have you been there so far?
Well, I've been in Raglan for about 7 years, but I've been in New Zealand since 2003.
Oh, wow.
It's been a
And
long time.
you just decided to just live there and stay there.
Well, I came over here originally because I was, following a boy that was from here. But when that didn't work out, I ended up staying. And then many years later, I met my now husband. So yeah,
So
and
it
I
was
just got
kind of like,
my citizenship here. So I'm very
oh
excited.
yeah, well, congratulations. I should get some tips from you on how I could be a citizen. Yeah,
It took me a long time.
I know. Yeah. No, it seems like destiny was really planned out, you know, for you to meet somebody, but that's not the one. And then
Yeah,
actually, yeah, because I
it's
always believe in
wild.
that. I believe in that. I believe that the stars are aligned, and there's a reason that you go there. And although he wasn't the one, he was supposed to be there to set you up in that place.
Yeah, it's funny. I distinctly remember a particular decision, and it was at like Victoria Station in the UK around whether or not I went to go and see this guy that I ended up going to New Zealand with. And I thought, yeah, I think this is probably going to change my life somehow, but I didn't know how. And I totally believe that life presents you with these opportunities to find your destiny. And when I discovered that my husband and I, we were actually in the same country at the same time a number of times. So I suspect that if I hadn't met him already here, I would have perhaps met him some other way.
Oh yeah, yeah. I totally
Our
believe
paths
in that.
crossed.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to me with your just based on your music and your vibe, I feel like you have a little bit of you're spiritual, obviously, and
Yeah,
and you must like astrology.
I do. I would not consider myself an expert in astrology. I'm very interested in it, but I don't I'm not very knowledgeable about the depths of it. So but yeah, I think it's pretty
Yeah.
magical.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so magical. Astrology is such a magical thing that I'm just totally blown away every time I look at things and I'm learning it. And
Cool.
there's so many things that I just sense that from you just by the title of your tracks. And
Yeah, well,
oh, oh,
there's a lot of references to nature and the divinity and energy in the living world. So there's references to moon and stars
the
and
new moon. Yeah, there's
yeah.
actually we had a new moon. Did it affect you? The new
Uh,
moon in Taurus?
well, well, I mean, the new moon is definitely, I like to really acknowledge the moon cycles here. I do like my planting by the moon and stuff like that, but I also just really, on a new moon, I like to, if I can, have like a little outdoor fire in our little area at the back. And I like to set some intentions and I write them down and I use a
Oh,
fancy
yeah, yeah,
pen.
yeah.
And then so a lot of this album was stuff that I was like manifesting during those times. So
Mhm.
it's, yeah.
Well, you
So yeah,
manifest.
yeah.
Yeah, you certainly manifested. Well, what is your sun sign?
Oh, so my sun sign is Cancer and also my moon sign is Cancer.
Oh, okay. Wow, you have a lot of water there. A lot of water
Y-
and yeah.
Yeah. I had my chart done at one stage and I must like find it because it would be really interesting to see. There were a lot of references to things that were rising and things that were in recession. I didn't really understand it all, but it would be neat to kind of go through it with somebody who knew what they were talking about.
Well, if you could probably look at your location chart, you can probably see why you're there. I think that's I think
Interesting.
it's something. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
interesting. Totally.
I, I feel like we could have a long chat.
Yeah, we can. I totally love to talk about astrology. That's why my show is called The Queen of Wands.
I love that. And the idea of
Tarot,
the tarot
tarot.
deck and
And
yeah,
I am a sun sign. My sun sign is Sagittarius, so that's why I'm the Queen of Wands.
awesome.
And but it's not really that. It's more of like the the creative. A Queen of Wands is somebody who's creative, who's artistic. Who's
Yeah.
that kind of
And
thing. Fire
and
sign.
self-empowered in her creativity. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I can totally. And plus, I know that your album that you just released um it's called Stars Will Light the Way.
Yeah.
Right? That was just released on April 29. Now that album was recorded at a healing frequency, right?
Yeah, I
Tell
started
us about that.
experimenting.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, I started experimenting with healing frequencies in my music at just at the end of my last EP. And so only one of the songs in the last EP is in 432. And I was really just trying to understand whether or not it felt any different to me or to an audience. And I started when I was doing live shows, detuning my keyboard and doing little things just to see if I noticed anything. And I really felt like people were connecting with the music more, and I started going a little bit more
Mm.
into the path of sound healing. And there's this beautiful convergence of music and math and physics when you get down to the frequency level and wavelengths, and you kind of discover that we're all kind of made of sound and vibration, and then it's like,
Oh,
oh
truly. I truly
yeah,
believe that because I have a
yeah.
whistle. I have a whistle that's a 528 frequency.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I was gonna ask you, how did you get your music to be 432 hertz? I
Well,
mean,
so it's all it's well, 432 refers to the pitch of the note A. And so the scale is kind of it's based on that. And it all kind of ties back to these solfeggio tones and like the Schumann frequency, which is like a whole probably different conversation about how we started to learn about the
mhm.
impact that sound has on the earth and our bodies. Um, but yeah, it's basically the scale of music is based on, you start with the earth frequency, it's like just under 8 hertz, and you go up the scale until C is I think 256 and A is 432. And that is kind of based on a measurement
Oh,
system that way.
well, I feel like if somebody's in the same frequency as you, they would appreciate the music even more so.
Well, that's the thing, is that our earth and our bodies resonate in that frequency. And so when we hear things, there's a thing in music which is really neat, and it's called sympathetic. Oh, is it sympathetic frequency or sympathetic tuning? Or it's like when you hit one note, something that's pitched at the same note will resonate
Mhm.
in unison. It's like they speak to each other, even if you haven't touched the other thing. It's amazing. But when we listen to music in 432 versus in 440, which is like standard tuning, there's like there's been research about it lowers our blood pressure, it increases relaxation,
Mhm.
the amount of stress hormone that's perceived in your saliva reduces. So there's like science behind it, but it also just
Totally believe it. I totally
it's
believe it
but it's like
because
ancient, you know, the
because
Gregorian chants and stuff
oh
are all
yeah, yeah.
432.
Because you know what I noticed is when I listen to certain types of music that's not related to this genre or anything I play, but I kind of deal with it, and it's probably a different frequency because I'm not in that frequency. I may
Yeah.
have been many years ago, but I think when people evolve, they just change. You know, I mean, we're all constantly changing.
Well, it's, you know,
Transform.
that phrase, like what you tune into, or like, are you tuned into this? And it's like, it sounds a bit like woo woo sometimes, but it is, it's science
Yeah.
and nature.
Yeah.
It's
No.
the gap between what we consider to be science and what we consider to be spiritual and connected to the universe are that's it's converging, because that's the truth, I think. And we're just kind of discovering it now, but it's neat.
Really, yeah. When I saw this, I'm like, oh wow, the healing frequency because I have a whistle, like I said, and I use that, and almost every morning, and I kind of blow it just to
Yeah.
get really in a meditative form shape, and then I can feel the energy. I can
Yeah.
feel the because you want to relax and you want to set your intentions and all that. So it really helps.
It does. I totally agree. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that you do that every morning.
I do. Yeah, every morning I meditate and yeah, do all kinds of things. And so I know that you start out with you're in the music world and so tell us about when you started out in music. I know you play the piano.
Yeah, I we had a piano in our house growing up, and it was gifted to us by family. And so I used to kind of go up to it and try to make noises. I can remember sort of reaching up and getting very excited about it. And I think I just always tinkered on the piano.
Yeah.
And then when I went away to school, that's when I really earnestly started songwriting, because the
Mhm.
school that I went to had a building full of pianos, and you could just go there and play a piano in private with nobody watching, and it was the most amazing luxury I could imagine. So yeah, that's kind of when the songwriting started. Mm.
Wow. And that was like so that was when you were living in the US.
Yeah, so that was when I was going to, yeah, when I was going to university there.
And then you had your debut album you released. It's an EP called Did You Hear?
Yeah,
And
that was in 2014. That was a 6-track EP, and that yeah, that was very reflective of what was going on in my life at that point, and those stories. And then in 2017 I did another EP, which you can kind of see the difference in the sound. That I was using different instruments, and I had a different producer at that stage, and that sort of leads into the album now, because I can really see the progression as far as how my musical taste and my style has evolved a little bit.
yeah, no, I see that. And I love the titles of the songs, because I can really feel the nature aspect. I know you must love nature.
I do. I
Yeah.
do. And I feel so fortunate to be in this environment where
Mhm.
the nature around me is so raw and it's rugged. And because we live off grid, I'm very attuned to the elements. And so when we get a lot of wind, it's like you're really in it, and our windmill starts going, and that means that we can power things, and that's when it's time to do the laundry. And it's a wild landscape out here, and I feel so deeply connected to it. Mm.
Yeah, you're definitely in your where you need to be.
I think so.
I
I
feel.
do.
Feel you do. Yeah, and you're definitely in the right musical path as well. I feel that too.
Thank you.
I,
Thank you. I
I mean,
really
I
appreciate that.
feel you're intuitive as well.
Well, I do rely a lot on my intuition, and it hasn't really, even at the times when I've thought, oh, that steered me wrong, it always ends up coming right in the end. So I've just, and I think following your intuition is something you have to practice.
Yeah.
It's kind of like blindly trusting yourself.
Hmm.
Um, and I think developing trust in yourself is kind of something you have to, well, I have to practice, I had to practice that in order to really, yeah, lean into it. Because if you don't have a habit of showing up for yourself first, and you
That's
focus
true.
on other people, you kind of lose the practice of trusting yourself. So I'm very focused on trusting myself lately.
Oh yeah, no, no. I feel you're in high vibration for sure. I feel
Oh,
that.
thank you.
um, I know you released this album. Is there I know the titles of the tracks are, very nature and astrological kind of base. But is there a particular reason why you wrote this particular album and why you is there a particular theme?
Well, I
Start
really
by
I wasn't aware of it at the time when I was compiling the songs. Because there are some songs on the album that I wrote a long time ago, and some that were written kind of during the recording process. So, but the ones that ended up coming together, I noticed there's a little bit of a theme around trying to kind of find your way through the dark.
Mm,
And with the stars will light the way, that's a lyric from one of the songs, but also when I think about all of the different things in our ancestral history that we used the stars to guide us to, in different faiths, maybe you followed the stars to find the Messiah, or maybe you followed the stars to navigate your way home if you were, out to sea. So there's a lot of references to water and the ocean and using the stars. Yeah.
wow. So the title of your parabola, can you tell us why did you choose that? I know it's a mathematical and I can feel
It's a
you love that everything is mathematical, nature, the universe,
yeah.
yeah, is all based on math. And I know this one is it's a curve U shape.
Yeah, it's a curved shape. And the story behind that is, I mentioned that we live off grid, but before we made that decision, I was researching off grid living, and I was getting very interested in solar power and solar heating and all sorts of things. And so I was basically researching how to make my own parabolic solar heater, solar oven scenario. And I started getting really fixated and fascinated about the properties of the parabolic curve, and the way that it takes light from any direction and focuses it into one fixed point, kind of like a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
You can, like, light a piece of paper on fire. Well, that's the parabolic curve that focuses the light. And I realized that in my music, I take all of my emotions and I focus them into music, and that's how I process things.
So
So I yeah.
were you a math major at one point?
No, I was actually terrible at math in
Oh,
school. I loved it. Well, that's not entirely true. I loved geometry because it was visual and I could see it, and that made sense to me. And then when I got into high school and I started learning about physics, the math component, I realized my math wasn't very strong, but I just loved the way that math and science explained the world. So I have a deep love and appreciation for math, but I certainly wouldn't say that like arithmetic is my strength.
did you focus on a certain subject in school?
I was always focusing on the arts and the humanities. When I was going to university, I was studying English literature. I
Oh
wanted
yeah,
to.
me too.
Oh, okay. So like,
Yeah, like
it must be a sunshine thing.
I
I
know
I
because
am.
I've always loved English literature. I still do. And which area of English lit did
Well,
you?
I really loved like the Romantics era,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, me too. Oh yeah, one of my favorites is William Wordsworth.
again, like, and that whole thing is like
Yeah.
that era of literature was about kind of finding the divine in nature, and it was
Romantic,
that.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that just really resonated with me as a spirit. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah,
Like the sublime and yeah, nature and just yeah, it's so beautiful.
some of that writing is
Shelley,
just so inspired.
yeah,
Yeah,
and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein's one of my favorite novels. I mean, this it's so deep. I mean, people don't.
incredible.
Not about a monster, really. I mean,
No,
yeah, besides that, it's more than that. It's
it's
really, yeah, it's totally deep.
I think
Yeah.
like, and I think that was an era where people were like exploring their own darkness a little bit,
Mhm.
and and not being afraid of it. And that's kind of an amazing transition, that because beforehand it was all about, we would, the writing that was coming out was all about from that Calvinist era, and Are We Saved? And it's very like a religious heavy, but yeah, the romantics just.
So you probably do write a lot of poetry as well.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's kind of how the songwriting started. It was I just wrote poetry a lot, and then when I found that building full of pianos, I was like, I'm gonna put some of these poems to music, and that's how it started. Yeah.
So is there any place that you would like to play live, like anywhere in the world that you haven't been to yet?
Yes. Thank you for asking. One of the things that I'm manifesting in my future is I have this vision that I'd love to go to the Scandinavian areas. I've never really kind of spent any time there or really gone, but I have this vision of playing a live show underneath the aurora borealis in either Iceland or Sweden. And my family heritage has a lot of Swedish ancestry, so I'd like to visit Sweden at some stage, and all the better if I can play a show.
I'm pretty sure you'll make it happen. You're already manifesting it at this point.
I'm putting it out there. It's definitely.
And if anybody's listening, they can always reach out to you and get you out there, like a promoter or somebody like that.
That's right. You just never know.
That. Yeah, because I believe in manifestation. I really do. When you really want something, it'll happen. Because, I mean, everything, whatever you're already thinking is already there.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's like the universe is sort of saying, well, are you ready to ask? It's here. Like, everything exists.
I mean, everything you want. Absolutely. Anything anybody wants is out there. I mean, there's more for everything for anybody. I mean, nothing is ever like not enough. There's always enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Whatever it is endless.
I think that coming to that conclusion, I think you have to go through some hard things to realize that conclusion, that, because there's that sense sometimes of this like relentless, more, never enough, what's next. And just realizing that actually that we are in an expanding and abundant universe, and there's
really
enough.
Are. Yeah, you totally hit it. That's very true. I totally believe that. And I want to do just a big shout out to Shauna, Shameless Promotion PR.
Isn't she amazing?
Totally amazing.
Yeah, she has this uncanny way of connecting the right people at the right time. So I'm very grateful to her for all the work that she's done to help me get this album into the world.
Yeah, she always has this amazing artist. When I look at it, when I got your stuff, I'm like, wow. And then I looked at the songs and everything. Oh, I could totally relate to her.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I must admit, I looked up a little bit about your show and about your background. And I was like, I totally could dig this. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the frequency you can feel. I think, yeah.
You just get it. You just you meet each other. It's like, okay, yeah,
we get it. I mean, there's people that you can meet and you meet, and if the frequency is not there, you don't have a connection. It's kind of like, because they're in a different frequency, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's just a bit, it just doesn't vibe. It's hard. It's like a hard thing to articulate, but yeah, sometimes you just connect with somebody, or maybe you don't. And then maybe later on in life, you'll meet them again and it'll be totally different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they raise their frequency, or, or you're able to meet like where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about, I know you have a website.
I do.
And I'm looking at it. I know for those people that want to check that out. So your album is a 13-track. I like how you have the last song, The New Moon.
It's like the extended version of New Moon. Yeah, I like that, because it's sort of, one of the lyrics in New Moon is that like, circle around, it'll be back, it'll be back soon. And it's kind of like this extended version of the New Moon. And then and when I released the album, I released it over a whole weekend, and that finished on a new moon. And I thought, that was the right timing.
So did you release this album on the new moon?
I released it on the Friday before the new moon. The new moon was on the Sunday.
Oh, that's good.
I was doing like release events for the whole weekend. So I kind of felt like it was
you're supposed to release a new thing on the new moon.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Okay.
I
Wow.
was
So that was
I was
about
feeling it.
April 29. Okay. Let me see. What was that new moon? What was the new moon on that day? Oh, that was Taurus, right?
Yeah, that was the
The
Sunday one. Yeah.
new moon in Taurus. Oh yeah, that's a really good new moon to that was also a partial eclipse.
I
Partial
know.
solar eclipse. Yeah.
I did it. It wasn't really by accident that I chose those dates, but yeah.
No,
So
Taurus is about stability. It's about being grounded to the earth. And she's ruled, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So that's about love and harmony. And yeah,
pretty much describes the
yeah.
themes of the album. What I wanted to do to celebrate the fact that it was like my debut full-length album was I had it made into a book. And so over the last year I've been working with this amazing team in New Zealand to create characters for each of the songs on
Oh,
on
like a
the
book.
album. And there's a 48 page, I have a bit of it
Oh,
here.
wow.
There's a 48-page book that goes with the album. It's called the Deluxe Album Book, and it's available on my shop at the moment if you want to check out my website. But
Wow,
I'll
that's
just
beautiful.
give you kind of an idea of, like, for example, um, one of the second song is called Calling Your Name, and the character with that is like frozen heart.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I was totally transformed into other characters. And then New Moon, since we were just talking about that, um, that character is called the Moon Witch. And
Oh,
so
yeah, yeah. Wow, the pictures are beautiful. They look like tarot decks.
they really do. So the team that I worked with was so on the same page around uh, the energy we were trying to put into it, and the aesthetic, and really just the audience that it was going to be for. So I suspect that some of the people who are purchasing this deluxe album book might have a tarot deck in their life.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm very, very. So when was that released? Is that available now?
It's available now, yeah. So it's on my website, and I've only made 100 copies of this book.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, so
they're all numbered.
it's on the shop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I
So
see that.
if you
Okay.
click on the Stars Will Light the Way, it'll take you to a page where you can look at the book, or if you just want to get the CD,
Oh, there it is.
it's
Yeah.
here.
It's a limited edition.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
that
then
oh, that's
and then this
beautiful.
is the CD. That's my little plugging. That's my
Oh,
my
no.
merch plug.
Yeah, so if anybody want to check that out, it's you can go to um parabolawest.com, parabolawest.com.
Yeah,
And then you also have a Facebook page,
I do.
Parabola West. And then you also have a YouTube channel.
I
You're on
do.
Twitter, Instagram, all Parabola West. And then also Bandcamp if
I
people
am.
want your music.
Yeah.
And
And
Parabola West. That's your last name.
it is.
Um, wow. Yeah, congratulations. I love the pictures. Who's the photographer who took the welcome to your
Thank
website?
you. Yeah, thank you for asking. So the photographer on this project, there were 3 photographers. The main picture on the website is by an amazing photographer named Trinity Navarre, and she does
Mm.
amazing fantasy photography. All of the hair and makeup and much of the costuming was done by Melody McCall. And the other photographer was Richard Lang, and he did the photography for the song Flowers and also the song Hannah and While the
Oh,
Watchman Sleeps. And then the third photographer was Rakib Rex, and he did the photography of the winged watcher, which goes with the song The Edge. So yeah, there's a lot going on in this book. It's 48 pages of just full immersion. And the idea was that if you put on the music and you're feeling the frequencies of the music, and then you're visually going through the book and you're enticed with that, and you're reading the lyrics, and I just wanted it to be a really fully immersive experience for anybody that really wanted that.
yeah, no, it's beautiful. So what is Hannah about? Hannah.
Well, Hannah is a kind of a weird uh, enigma, because I was driving in the car and I just got henna kind of came to me in a picture in my mind, and all of the melody and the lyrics just started kind of coming
Oh,
to me almost from somebody else. And so I had to pull over the car and I put into my phone, I went into the voice memos and I just started singing what I was hearing. And I was seeing this picture of this woman in this like white silhouette kind of dress. And she is sort of almost like vapor, kind of like ghostly, but you're not sure. And I couldn't get it out of my head until I went to the piano and I started doing it. And it was like, I said, I think I said, I mentioned to Shona that it was like the closest thing to being haunted that I'd ever
oh wow.
experienced, because she was just there, and I had to just get the song out. So it's a song about this woman who kind of disappears into the night. She talks with
Oh,
spirit. She's
hmm.
very attuned. And the question is whether or not she's kind of gone too far through the veil, and what's become of her. And so her lover is searching for her, trying to find out what happened to her, and he starts feeling himself getting pulled through in the same way. So it's like, is she haunting him? Is it's you're left with like a bit of a mystery. It's kind of a spooky song.
I just feel like your whole life it should be in a movie. Because of what you're telling me right now, it's almost like, wow, it's almost like this is like, I don't know, maybe it's a deja vu of some kind, but interesting.
Well, my husband just the other night said, it'd be really cool for all of these characters to have another life in another form. Like, it would be really cool to make, videos or movies about these characters, or like a musical where all their stories intertwine in a more in a
Yeah,
clearer
there you go.
way.
That's a
So
manifestation right there.
yeah, so I'm kind of, so funny you should say that. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there might be something in the future of that. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so too. And I hope so too. I think so too. You
Yeah,
know, yeah, so I'm really so happy you can join me, and thank you for being here.
likewise.
Is there anything else? I mean, do you have you have any plans for I know you just released this album, so you're probably taking a break.
Well, I don't have this weekend. I'm traveling to play at the Norsewood Viking Festival, which I'm very excited about
Really?
because
In New Zealand?
yeah,
Oh,
there's a place in New
wow.
Zealand that was kind of settled by a bunch of people that had emigrated over to New Zealand many years ago, generations ago, as expert woodworkers um, from from Norway and from some of the surrounding areas. And so this little area has all this really neat history, and they've in the last few years started doing this kind of festival that kind of celebrates the Scandinavian culture as it's, and the Viking. It's a little bit historical, and then it's also a little bit kind of fantasy and fun. So I love a good dress up and an opportunity to get amongst it. So I'm looking forward to performing there, and then doing
Oh,
like axe
okay.
throwing, getting a drinking horn, having mead. Like, I'm
Oh, yeah,
in.
yeah. Wow, that looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Oh,
then I think I'll do a tour in the summertime, because right now we're getting ready to go into winter.
oh yeah,
Because
I know
our
winter. It's
seasons
like
are,
Australia, right? It's like similar to Australia.
yeah,
Yeah.
seasonally. Yeah. So I think I will let this album breathe uh and reach its audience, and then I will just be guided as to where the shows should be in the summertime. So that's my loose plan.
So that's Parabola West, and the album is called Stars Will Light the Way. It was released on April 29th. And if people want to check that out, you can always go to the website, parabolawest.com. And you can check her out on Facebook, Parabola West, parabola.west, and facebook.com/parabola.west. And then also on Twitter and YouTube. And yeah, so excited for you. Thank you
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
me.
It's a
Thank you
real
for
pleasure. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
I know, same here. Okay, so I'm gonna just turn this off.